Hello, Cleveland. Welcome to the Dogland Podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki. We are here today to get you ready for the matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Washington football team. That is still weird to say. I will try to get used to it. But as always, I have Jack McCurry rolling with me to break this game down for you as we get ready for the matchup on Sunday. Jack, how we doing?
Oh, good, man. It's been a long week. Obviously, we didn't get to sit down as much as we like to bring you guys some quality podcasts, but here we are getting ready for a game. And I will admit, it is weird to say. I've caught myself a few times this week talking about it with people that it is now the Washington football team.
Yeah, I will do my best not to say that former name that they used to be under. It's just when you're conditioned for so long to say a team's name, kind of like the Los Angeles Chargers. That's still weird for me to say. So or the Las Vegas Raiders. Those it takes a while to get used to it and calling it by their new name and. We'll see what the future holds for the Washington football team in terms of picking out a new name. But as we get ready for Sunday, there's a lot of injury news to discuss, and I guess the biggest one is while the secondary for the Browns is starting to get healthy, Denzel Ward has missed practice the last 2 days with a groin injury. And I know a lot of us have looked forward to seeing him go one on one with Terry McLaurin, another Buckeye, um, this weekend, and we thought that'd be a really good matchup to watch and something that would be necessary to have him out there. But Jack, it looks like there's a good shot he might not play this Sunday, and if that's the case, there's some other guys are going to have to step up now. Greedy Williams has been practicing this week and will likely play on Sunday, so having him back will be helpful. But not having Denzel Ward is really going to be a tough blow to this defense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, outside of Miles Garrett, Denzel Ward's one of our cornerstones on the defensive side of the ball, and it's still unclear how this injury came about. Don't know if it happened during, or it obviously happened during a practice because it didn't get hurt at all during last week's win against Cincinnati. Uh, but yeah, I mean, if he's down, that's really going to hurt because as we've seen for the first two games, the secondary has been a struggle. Obviously, if we're getting Greedy Williams back, Kevin Johnson back, that's going to help. But if you're losing Denzel Ward, it's going to be a major blow. Now, granted, I feel like Terrence Mitchell, if we get Greedy and Kevin Johnson back, even in a limited capacity, that they can stop Washington's wide receivers. But Denzel Ward, he has had the injury bug a little bit during his NFL career so far. He had the concussions back his rookie year. Last year, he had the hamstring strain. I know a lot of people want to say that, he's injury prone and he's never going to shake that. But, I feel like, Denzel Ward is one of the most disrespected players, not even only on the Browns, but in the league. So hopefully this injury is not serious. We haven't gotten official word as what his status will be for Sunday. But if he's out, it's definitely going to hurt the Browns defense.
Yeah, you mentioned there Kevin Johnson also returning, and now having him, Greedy Williams, and Terrence Mitchell, you said you're confident that those three guys could help contain the wide receivers that Washington has. Um, I know you spent some time earlier today watching Washington and their last game and whatnot. Talk about what you saw from their receivers and what they do to potentially cause problems for the Browns defense.
Well, obviously, we know what Terry McLaurin is. As soon as he arrived in the NFL, he's made an impact, and he is their best weapon. He might even be their only weapon, according to some. But he's definitely a playmaker. He doesn't wow you with any like athletic abilities. He's just a solid target. The touchdown he had last week, it was just a quick little slant route, and he was able to cut through the middle of the field and head towards the end zone. And people will say, well, they don't have much besides that. But I'm watching Steven Sims, and that'll be a guy I'll keep an eye on. He's another guy that doesn't wow you, but he does have some playmaking ability. Those are the only two that really stand out in terms of the wide receivers. So I feel like, and Terrence Mitchell is another one of these disrespected players talked about on the Browns, and even our colleague Jake Burns, who's been on the show a few times, said yesterday, like, you look at his coverage grades, his, like, when they throw towards him, like, Terrence Mitchell's a playmaker. So if Denzel Ward can't go, I feel like Mitchell will do a pretty good job on McLaurin if need be. I think Kevin Johnson will as well, because Kevin Johnson was one of those underrated free agent signings we had in the offseason. Obviously, it's amazing he's back already after having a lacerated liver during training camp. And then, it'll be interesting to see what Greedy Williams can do. He had a shaky rookie season. Hopefully Joe Woods has him in a better scheme to where Greedy can be utilized and show that he was worth the second round pick that the Browns took. But, outside of Sims and McLaurin, there really wasn't anything out of the Washington receivers that wowed me when I was watching the game earlier today.
It's just nice to have a little bit of depth back, having Greedy Williams and Kevin Johnson back. Having those two guys back will definitely make a difference on this Browns defense that has definitely struggled through the first couple of weeks here. Speaking of,
can I cut in real quick?
Yep.
Greedy Williams was just ruled out by the Browns for Sunday, and Denzel Ward is listed as questionable. So sorry to cut you off there, but I figured we'd chime in with a little breaking news.
Yeah, I guess that that throws a rush into what I just said about having depth for Sunday. So, that's really unfortunate. I guess they won't have as much depth as we thought they would. Having Greedy, having Kevin Johnson back for the game on Sunday. So that's a really tough blow for that he'll be out for third straight game to start the season, and we'll see if Denzel plays or not. Speaking of depth, the defensive line. Now, Olivier Vernon has not practiced all week. Adrian Claiborne finally returned to practice on today, actually. So the depth on the defensive line, especially at that defensive end position, has been really thin. It will be nice to have Claiborne back. He'll start if he plays, I would tend to guess, and then they'll rotate in Porter Gustin, who had a really solid performance against the Bengals last Thursday night. Jack, if Olivier Vernon isn't able to go, and I know Washington's offensive line isn't the best in the world. They're kind of in the same situation as the Bengals. How much success do you feel this defensive line could have if they're still missing Olivier Vernon, and for some reason Adrian Claiborne can't play even though he returned to practice today?
Yeah, just because we're getting the injury reports now, Vernon has been ruled out. Claiborne's listed as questionable. Mac Wilson is also listed as questionable. We didn't really talk about him, but he, that'll be probably a game time decision. And then, who am I drawing a blank on right now? Kevin Johnson is expected to play. I'm sorry. But when you talk about the defensive line, obviously, if Vernon can't go, I know there was some, kind of worried, about how the defensive line was going to shake out without him. And they played fairly well against a really bad, more than fairly well. They played really good against a pretty bad Bengals offensive line. Now you're coming into this week. The Washington offensive line wasn't that good already. Now they just lost their best one, Brandon Scherf, to injury. And this is a Washington offensive line and the statistic was they've given up pressure on 35.5% of dropbacks by the quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. So, this is another opportunity for the Browns defensive front that has played well through 2 weeks to have another outstanding performance. We already know what Myles Garrett is. Claiborne's had a couple sacks already in his first few games, obviously went out last week with the hip injury. Porter Gustin is coming on, and a lot of more people are taking notice that this kid does have talent. We've seen glimpses of it last year, and that last week he was dominant against Cincinnati. Myles Garrett had 9 pressures, Porter Gustin had 6, and that just goes to show that the defensive line coach, I think it's Chris Kiffin, defensive coordinator Joe Woods, they have done great work with our defensive line, including our edge rushers. So I would expect that we see another pretty strong performance against arguably another bad offensive line in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, if the defensive backs aren't able to go like Denzel Ward and we just saw Greedy Williams is out, um, do you really think it's going to matter if they're out if this offensive line is able to put a ton of pressure on Dwayne Haskins all game long, and as well as stopping the running game for the Washington football team?
No, I don't. Because I mean, you look back last week. I mean, we were getting pressure on Cincinnati's front. Yeah, the Browns defense gave up a lot of yards, but you watch Denzel Ward and Terrence Mitchell were shutting down AJ Green, and pretty much it was Joe Burrow just dinking and dunking against our defense. It was kind of a bend but don't break mentality. Like, yeah, we gave up 30 points, and there's a lot of things that the Browns could work on, but they didn't really give up any big plays. You, they pretty much shut down their big time playmakers for the most part. So, and when you look at Washington, like I said, you have McLaurin, you have Sims. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, Logan Thomas is their top tight end. He was a former quarterback at Virginia Tech who has transformed to a tight end the last few years. We'll get to the running backs on the Washington football team, but I just don't see, like, even though Greedy's out, Denzel might be out. I feel like Mitchell, Kevin Johnson, and the guys the back of our secondary, the safeties, they'll be able to limit the production of the Washington skill players for sure.
So, how do we feel about Dwayne Haskins and his development so far? Because he was a first round pick in 2019. He had an up and down rookie season. They brought in Kyle Allen. Alex Smith returned this season from that nasty knee injury. How do we feel about where Dwayne Haskins is at this moment? And do you feel that Washington has your quarterback?
It's still, I think it's still to be determined. Obviously, a regime change happened. Ron Rivera came in. He brought in Kyle Allen, brought him over from Carolina. Like you said, they did keep Alex Smith, who's pretty much there at this point in a mentor role. I don't know if he's ever going to see the field again. Thankfully, he made the roster. Like you said, after that knee injury. Haskins, there's some things you like about him. The completion percentage is low. He's not. I think it's just still to be determined. Like, I think we all seen the greatness that he had in that one season at Ohio State, which obviously launched him into being a first round pick. Is everything there to help support him in Washington? I'd say no. I think they could upgrade at the wide receiver position, the tight end position. Obviously, the offensive line play hasn't been all that great for him. The one good thing is he hasn't turned the ball over, hasn't been sacked too much. He is limited in his mobility, but I don't feel like you're seeing enough aggressiveness throwing the ball downfield, and I think that leads to there isn't the playmakers to get the ball downfield too. McLaurin's not a speedy guy. Sims has some speed, but not too much. The running backs have been okay, haven't been great. I feel like Adrian Peterson would definitely help him. They cut him before training camp was over, and they have a lot of young depth at that running back position. But I think it's still to be determined. We'll see how the season plays out. But I still think it's too early to say whether or not Dwayne Haskins is the quarterback moving forward for the Washington football team.
Yeah, you talk about not getting the ball downfield, and what that we've seen that so much with Browns quarterbacks over the years and struggling to do so. If you can't get the ball downfield in the passing game, it just allows defenses to tee off on you in terms of the pass rush and stopping the run as well. Because if there's no threat to go deep, um, defenses will load the box, and regardless of the down, they're able to tee off on the offense and have a really good pass rush and whatnot. So that's something that Terry McLaurin has hopefully can change, but they're going to need more weapons, like you mentioned on the offensive side, as well as a better offensive line to give Haskins time to throw the ball downfield and stretch the defense out. You mentioned Ron Rivera, and they brought him in um, after all that time at Carolina that he spent there. And when you talk about Ron Rivera, he's known for defense. And when you look at the Washington football team, the strength is in their defense. They've invested the last four first round picks over the last 4 years into the defensive line with Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Montez Sweat. When you talk about having a specific culture, when you think about Ron Rivera, it's having good defensive teams. And while the offense may be similar to Cincinnati, um, who the Browns played last week, this defense that they're going to go up against is a lot more difficult than the Bengals defense um, that was put out there last week. So they're definitely going to have a more difficult time moving the ball. I would tend to think against this Washington defense, who has a really solid defensive front and a really defensive-minded head coach.
Yeah, definitely. And you didn't even mention Ryan Kerrigan, who's been a stalwart there in Washington for I think almost the last decade, if not more than a decade. That's another first round pick. So
Yeah,
there's five.
2011.
Yeah, so five first round picks on that defensive front. I told you before we started recording, this is similar to what San Francisco was doing out there. You know, when they had Boza, Buckner, Thomas. They had acquired D Ford, who was a first round pick. And so you can see what Washington's trying to do. And obviously, you mentioned Ron Rivera's background, former player, was part of that '86 Bears defense. They also have Jack Del Rio. We know his credentials as both a player and a defensive coordinator, as well as a head coach in this league. So, this team is built on their defense, and they have been pretty darn good for the first 2 weeks. Yeah, they've given up some points, but they dominated week one against the Eagles coming back. I think they were down 17-0, and they scored 27 unanswered. They got after Carson Wentz, and then obviously last week, I was watching the Arizona game. They obviously gave up 30 points, but I could see what Arizona was doing to make sure that the defensive front didn't get after Kyler Murray. Seeing a lot of quick passes, a lot of screens, so Kyler could get the ball out quickly. Because if Kyler's going to sit back there and wait for a receiver to get open, he was going to end up getting sacked. And we know his mobility and his able to extend plays with his legs, but it was just going to be a tough matchup for him. And they were able to run the ball. Arizona was able to run against this team, but I don't know what the Browns' game plan is in mind. But this defense is very talented, and for Baker, you you can't wait for a play to be can't wait for somebody to get open or something. So I feel like for the Browns, they need to stick to running the football until Washington stops it, and then once they try to stop it, I feel like that's going to open up the passing game, and that's going to get Baker time to get the ball to Odell or Jarvis or the tight ends. But uh, it's going to be a lot tougher this week for Cleveland than it was last week against Cincinnati. That's for sure.
I feel the game plan for the Browns offensively is going to be similar to how it was kind of in that first drive against Cincinnati. I think they're going to do what they can to move the pocket to give Baker some more time, maybe get away from Chase Young, um, roll out towards, roll the opposite side of where he's at. That'll help him out. Definitely using the running game to help that defense not tee off um, on the Browns. I know the offensive line for the Browns has been really good. Wyatt Teller has been one of the highest rated offensive linemen. Jedrick Wills has played really well. There's been excellent breakdowns on that as well. So the offensive line, I have confidence that they'll be able to give Baker time, but um, they're going to have to do some certain things schematically to help Baker out, I think, this weekend. I think Baker can excel in quick passes, and if you're able to do that, they have the weapons at receiver and running back to make that happen. OBJ and quick slants, uh, Cream Hunt out of the backfield as well. So there's a lot the Browns can do offensively to help suppress the pass rush um, that the Washington football team will have against the Browns. So I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of chess match because you know week one they went up against a tough defensive line, really struggled. Uh, Last week, definitely a different story and different talent pool for Cincinnati, but um, this week against Washington, that talent pool is back up there, and it's going to be difficult at times. And this team, the Washington football team, they're probably going to get some sacks. They're going to get some quarterback pressures, maybe even some quarterback hits, and uh, uh, they're going to give Baker a difficult time. So it's going to be up to this offensive line to help Baker out as much as they can, as well as the play calling. We saw last week with Stefanski some of the nuances that he had calling plays and some of the things he did to help out Baker. You're going to have to do the same thing again this week to help him out going up against a tough defensive front. So I have confidence that this Browns team is going to be able to move the ball. Um, I can see their offense being just as good as Arizona with the talent pool that the Browns can put out there with all the different playmakers that they have and a really good offensive line. So I think they'll be able to move the ball. They'll be able to score some points. It's just a matter of when it's crucial. If it comes to a crucial situation um, that the Browns have to score or get a first down, that they'll be able to handle the pass rush that this defensive front is going to be able to throw at them.
The one thing I worry about is if, Baker starts to feel pressure by this defensive front, like, is he going to revert back to old habits? Like, I feel like hopefully, Stefanski and Van Pelt have schemed it up to where, Baker can trust this offensive line well enough to where even if he does get a sack or he gets pressure or gets hit, that it's not going to rattle him. Like, I don't know if you've seen the mic'd up video where Stefanski tells Baker, just keep your eyes downfield. Just keep your eyes downfield. Like, I feel like if Baker, sees someone coming, that he will roll out, but he's still keeping his eyes downfield, seeing if, Odell, Landry, Bryant, Hooper, or even one of the running backs gets free and is able to make a play, that Baker's going to be able to look down the field, find someone open, and still, connect with the weapons. Even if Chase Young's coming after him, even if Kerrigan's coming after him, like, yeah, this is a talented defensive front. It's not going to be what the Bengals were bringing at him, but Baker's got to know, like, if I'm going to be the guy here in Cleveland, I can't be worried about these guys coming after me. I need to look downfield, shake off the rush that's coming, and still make the throws down the field, regardless if it's Cincinnati or it's Washington. Baker still has to be confident that he can still make the plays to put points on the board.
Um, let's talk about the Washington secondary because they do have some players back there. They have, excuse me, they have Kendall Fuller at cornerback. They have Landon Collins at safety, Ronald Darby at corner. Uh, they have a fourth round pick in Troy, I think it's Apke, from 2018, back there as their starters. How do you feel that defensive secondary will be able to handle the talent of the Browns offense, especially looking at OBJ and Jarvis Landry?
Yeah, I mean, they are a talented group, but watching the Arizona game, I feel like they're still learning this defense schematically. The first touchdown that they gave up, it was a simple slant route at the goal line to DeAndre Hopkins. Uh, Fabian Moreau was covering him, and Hopkins cut in, and Collins was supposed to pick him up. Collins didn't pick him up, and you could see immediately, like, Collins knew, like, he made a mistake. So while this is a talented group, they're still learning, just much like the Browns are learning. These are new coaching staffs for both sides, new schemes, new play calls and everything. So they're still getting the kinks out, much like the Browns offense was the first couple weeks. So um, do I expect them to be better this week? Absolutely. I feel like each game, each snap, you're going to get better, especially when you're learning a new scheme. Um, so this is a talented bunch. Uh, I expect it won't be easy for the Browns, but there's still going to be opportunities for plays to be made. I think a one play last week, and this is perfect for our receivers. They sent Christian Kirk down the sideline. Ronald Darby, who's coming off, I believe, an Achilles injury, and he's had his fair share of knee injuries. He, Kirk was one step ahead, and I'm thinking like, okay, this is a play that Odell could run, that Jarvis could get down the field. Even a Kendall Hodge, for instance, like these secondary is talented. They all have their flaws, and I feel like that's where the Browns will have the edge, definitely, when it comes to going up against Washington's defense. Is that our skill players are better than their secondary. So that's a situation where I think Odell can have a strong performance. Landry can have a strong performance, and the linebackers, because we didn't even talk about them. Their linebackers are okay, but I can see a situation where our tight ends get more involved this week in the passing game. We can finally see maybe a breakout performance by Hooper. Maybe even Bryant has an opportunity to capitalize. So uh, I feel good about our weapons against their key components in the back seven for sure.
As we start to wrap up here, Jack, I want you to give me one thing that has to happen in order for the Browns to win this game on Sunday.
Continue to run the football and wear down that defensive front. You've seen it last week. Even though it was against a banged up Bengals defense, the Browns just kept pounding the ball, running, and you heard it this week from Landry, from Odell. This is the formula for success. They know that they're having to sacrifice some so that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt can help carry this offense, and I feel like they need to keep doing that. And I heard someone say it this week, keep running the football until defenses stop you. And I feel like that's what the Browns need to keep doing. You have two of the best running backs in the National Football League, the top running back tandem in the league. That's the formula for success. The Browns need to keep going with it. I mean, it's when you put up 35 points, the majority of it is because of your running game. You keep doing that until it doesn't work, and then you work on something else to make your offense keep churning. So if the Browns are going to win, just keep doing what they're doing. Give the ball to 24, give the ball to 27, and until Washington stops it, that's what you do. And I feel like that's going to put us in the best situation to win on Sunday.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way you do. Um, they had great success last week running the football, and you saw what Nick Chubb was able to do to wear them down over 3 quarters. And then you saw in the fourth quarter they started to give it to Kareem Hunt, who's just a different style and was slashing through the Bengals defense. And I couldn't tell you how many times, Jack, we've seen that one drive happen against the Browns where they started out the first couple plays with Nick Chubb. They put Kareem Hunt in there, and he just sliced his entire way into the end zone in just a handful of plays. We've seen that happen so many times to the Browns late in the fourth quarter, and it's just so wonderful to see it happen for us for a change. So running the football definitely is going to be, I think, agree along with you, the formula to win the game against Washington on Sunday. Um, Predictions. Give me your prediction for Sunday.
I say the Browns win, but I have this feeling that Washington's defense is going to keep it a lot closer than people think. I do expect that our running game will wear that defense out, going into the fourth quarter. It'll be close, but I do say the Browns win. And Anthony, I don't know if you're ready for this crazy statistic, and shout out to Rod Bloom of the Browns Blitz who looked this one up. The Browns, once they win on Sunday, because I do say they're going to win, they will be over 500 for the first time since the 2014 season. And that's just crazy to me. But, finally, the Browns will break through over the 500 mark, and they'll win. I say 27-21. Browns win.
Oh, good old Brian Hoyer. That's the last time that happened. Um, I agree with you. I think the Browns are going to win on Sunday. Um, It's going to be a tough battle to score some points, I think. But in the end, the Browns just have so much firepower on offense that they're going to be able to handle Washington and score on them when they need to, in my opinion. So, with that being said, I have the Browns winning this game, um, 30 to 24. I'll say it's going to be within 6 points. I think the Browns are getting 7 points in this matchup. In the betting world. So I think that the Washington will keep this close, but eventually the Browns will be able to pull away and come out with a victory. And like you said, had their first winning record since 2014, which is unbelievable, but that's where we've been over all these years. Jack, anything else you want to discuss as we get on out of here?
No, sir. We are good to go.
All right. As we get on out of here, be sure to follow Jack on Twitter at JackMcCurry08. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Anthony Joki and the website as well at the Dogland on Twitter and on Facebook. With all of that, we will be back at some point on Sunday to break down this matchup and hopefully talk about another Browns win. And until then, and most importantly, go Browns.